It was a quiet Tuesday evening in the town of Willow Creek, Nebraska. Population just over 2,000, surrounded by endless cornfields and a sense of calm that most outsiders envied. The sun was dipping low behind the horizon, painting the sky in blood-red streaks that stretched over the fields. Emily Harper pulled into her driveway after a long day at the elementary school where she taught first grade. Her husband, Mark, was supposed to meet her for dinner, but had been delayed at the county fair outside town. As she stepped out of her car, she noticed something odd. The front door of their home was slightly ajar. She frowned, the autumn breeze rustling the dead leaves on the lawn. She thought maybe Mark had come ahead of schedule and left the door open. Inside, everything seemed undisturbed. The lamps off, the sofa cushions in their place, the TV silent. But Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine. She called out softly, "Mark?" No answer, just the silence of the house, and beyond that, the deep hush of the night. She walked into the living room and found the radio on, broadcasting static, the digital clock blinking 12 shu. She reached over and switched it off, her breath visible in the sudden cold. She shook her head and moved toward the kitchen. That S when she heard it, the loud ring of the landline phone slicing through the calm. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello," she said. On the other end, a voice she didn't recognize, a whisper. "We're watching you." The line went silent. Emily pressed the receiver closer, heart hammering. "Who is this?" she asked. The whisper returned. "Don't let the echo answer." Then the call ended. Emily stood frozen, the phone still in her hand, her ears ringing with that strange phrase. She looked toward the kitchen window and saw movement outside, someone or something crossing the lawn between the cornfields and the house. She stifled a scream and hurried to lock the door behind her. She called Mark, but no answer. She tried her cell phone. No signal. Then, out of the darkness, the front porch light flickered on and off 3 times. Emily's breath hitched. She backed away from the window. The phone rang again. She dropped the receiver and the answer machine started. A distorted voice, humming, repeating one word, "Echo." With trembling fingers, she turned off the machine and raced upstairs. In the hallway mirror, she caught sight of something behind her, a shadowed figure, pale and thin, standing at the foot of the stairs. It vanished as she spun around, but the cold remained. In her childhood home here in Willow Creek, she had never felt fear like this. Upstairs, she pounded on the bedroom door, calling Mark's name. No response. The door creaked open at her touch. Mark wasn't there. The bed was unmade, his jacket thrown over the chair. The window was open slightly. The curtains moved as though someone had just slipped away. The landline rang again. She snatched it up. 911, what's your emergency?" a calm dispatcher said. Emily's voice cracked. "Someone's in my house. I heard a voice on the phone. I saw a figure." The dispatcher asked her to stay on the line. To stay calm. Emily's heart pounded. She crept to the window and peered into the darkness, aiming the little flashlight she'd grabbed. Outside in the field edge, she saw footprints in fresh-turned soil leading toward the cornfields, and the shadow of a tall figure standing just beyond the tree line, watching. "They're still out there," she said quietly. "I don't know what they want." The dispatcher promised help was coming, asked for her address. Emily gave it, even though her voice wavered. She heard sirens in the distance. Relief flooded her momentarily. But before she could exhale, the electricity cut out. The house went completely dark, except for the flashlight beam. A scraping sound echoed from the front door, something outside dragging itself across the porch. Emily backed into the kitchen, stumbled across the phone. It smashed to the floor with a harsh crack. She held the flashlight like a lifeline and crept down the stairs, each step creaking loudly in the night. At the bottom, the door to the basement stood slightly open. That door is always locked, she thought. The flashlight's beam trembled across the door. Behind it, she could hear shallow breathing. She froze. The dispatcher came back on the line, asking if everything was okay. Emily whispered, "I think someone is in my basement." Sirens closer now. The shadow outside moved away from the porch and retreated toward the cornfield. Emily's vision blurred with tears. She gripped the phone. "They're gone, but I don't know where." A police cruiser pulled into the driveway. The siren cut off. A uniformed officer shouted through a megaphone, "Miss Harper, stay upstairs. Police are here." Emily climbed the stairs 2 at a time, shaking uncontrollably. She locked herself in the bathroom and took slow breaths. Outside the window, the cornfield swayed in the moonlight, silent and innocent. Inside, Emily's world had shifted. The small town she knew had become something else. She didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling, listening for sounds in the dark. Before dawn, the officer knocked on her door and came in. "We swept the house. No sign of the intruder," he said quietly. "But we found this." He held up a small cassette tape, labeled in handwritten letters, "Echo File 01." Emily stared. She didn't own any cassette tapes. The officer placed it on her countertop. "We found this near the cornfield edge. We're baffled." Emily looked at the tape. "What is it?" she asked. The officer sighed. "We don't know yet. We'll play it at the station." Emily nodded, numb. Outside the window, first light crept through the curtains. The cornfield seemed peaceful. The wind whispered through the dead stalks. She resolved to stay buried in the house until daylight, but at the back of her mind, she knew something had slipped into her life. Something that didn't belong. Willow Creek would never feel safe again. And the tape. She wondered what it held. The radio, the whisper, the shadow. The phrase, "Don't let the echo answer." It echoed in her mind as she closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. But sleep did not come. Not that night. The town was quiet, but its silence held danger. Emily thought of her husband, Mark, lost somewhere in the dark. And she thought of the cornfield beyond, waving like a sea of watchers. She felt the weight of the unknown pressing in. Outside, the sirens moved on to other calls, but within the walls of her home, something lingered. A question: who made the call, and why? The officer returned before dawn with coffee. He looked at her kindly. "You're safe now," he said. But Emily felt the opposite. Safe would be doing something about the tape, or the call. She asked, "Will you play it here?" The officer shook his head. "At the station." She watched him go and closed the door behind him. Alone again. The lights off. The house silent. She laid on the sofa, clutching a blanket, eyes open. The wind rattled a window. The tape sat on the counter, the shadow of the cornfield pressed against the window pane. She thought of the voice on the phone, "We're watching you." She thought of the whisper, "Don't let the echo answer." She thought of the figure at the foot of the stairs, and she thought, most of all, if it was here, it could come back. In Willow Creek, the quiet hides something. And Emily knew she was only beginning to learn what it was. 2 days later, the cassette tape was still untouched on Emily's kitchen counter. She hadn't pressed play. She couldn't. Meanwhile, the local police department in Willow Creek, Nebraska, filed a report, but the investigation had run cold. The shadow left no trace. Emily forced herself to return to the school for classes, though each corridor felt longer, darker. She half expected the figure from her house to walk through the classroom door. Mark finally came back home late that night. exhausted. He had missed the dinner and the call. He found Emily pale, holding the cassette like a secret. "What's that?" he asked. Emily looked at him with tired eyes. "We found this outside the house the night of the call." Mark frowned. He didn't believe in ghosts or conspiracies. "Let's just get rid of it," he said. "It's a tape, probably prank." Emily shook her head. "Something's wrong. You don't see what I saw." Mark placed the tape in a drawer. "Okay," he said, "but no more talking about it." That night, Emily's phone buzzed. A text message, "Echo Zo2 ready." She stared, heart pounding. She opened the message. An address. The map pin pointed to the old corn silo on the edge of town, abandoned since the 1970s. She showed Mark. He looked at it like it was a joke. "We'll go tomorrow during the day," he said. But Emily couldn't sleep. She kept hearing the whisper again and again. "Don't let the echo answer." At dawn, they drove to the old silo. The rusted roof creaked in the wind. The metal steps up to the loft were missing. Emily found footprints in the dust, leading into the silo's darkness. The flashlight beam showed scratches on the wall, long vertical lines carved deep. Mark called the police. The officer who came said, "We'll investigate," but the footprints were fresh and then they vanished inside. That night, the landline rang again. Emily answered. A voice said, "Echo 03. The line went dead. Emily collapsed into tears. Mark held her. "We're leaving town," he said quietly. But the next morning the front door was ajar again, the same cold draft blowing through the house. The police found another tape near the cornfield, this one labeled Echo Zo2. Emily refused to touch it. She felt the panic rising. At school the next day, a student asked her, "Miss Harper, why did you look at me funny today?" Emily realized the student's face flickered with recognition, though she'd never met him before. A pale boy, slim, eyes too large, standing by the locker. She blinked. He was gone when she turned to speak to him. She ran to the teacher's lounge and shook. "Something is happening," she whispered to her colleague Sarah. "I'm not okay." Sarah just patted her shoulder. "You look tired. Take a break." That night, Emily sat at the kitchen table, the tape in front of her. Her hand hovered over the play button on the old cassette player. She hesitated, then she pressed play. Static. Then a faint voice, her own, saying something she didn't remember. "They watch. They wait. Echo knows your name." The tape crackled. The voice changed, a deep breathing, a moan, then silence. The tape ended abruptly. The machine clicked off. Emily stood. She felt violated. Mark came in. "What did you hear?" he asked. She shook. "My voice, but not me." They heard footsteps outside, circling the house. They locked the doors. They called the police. The dispatch confirmed there were no units near. "We're low on staff tonight," the officer said. Emily shut off all lights and crept upstairs. She looked at the bedroom window facing the cornfield. The stalks swayed, though there was no wind. At that moment, the window rattled. A tap, tap, tap. Emily gasped as a long, thin shadow passed the glass. She backed away, ran into the closet, and buried herself in clothes. The phone buzzed again. Text. "Echo 04. We see you." She didn't answer. She trembled. The next morning, Mark was gone. No note, no call. The bedroom window open. Emily screamed. She ran downstairs. They called the police. They searched the house. No Mark. Outside, near the porch, the words were scrawled in the dirt. "Echo knows your number." Emily stared at the message, rain beginning to drizzle, heralding a storm. She called the dispatch. Someone took him. The voice answered, "Stay on the line, ma'am. We're coming." Suddenly, the phone went dead. Emily walked to the front door, opened it carefully. The porch light flickered off, then on. The cornfield in front of her swallowed the edge of the yard. She stepped outside and the grass was wet. The footprints she'd seen before were gone, replaced by a single set leading away. She followed them into the field, phone in hand, though it still showed no signal. Each step squished in mud, each breath loud in the dark. The stalks closed behind her, rustling like voices. A voice from the darkness. "You followed." Emily froze. Then she kept walking. The flashlight illuminated nothing but blackness beyond the corn. The footprints ended at the rusted silo. The door stood open, inviting. She stepped in. It was empty. Then the door slammed shut behind her. She tried to open it. The handle wouldn't budge. She pounded, screamed. The flashlight revealed walls covered in names of people from Willow Creek and neighboring towns. Mark's name was one of them. A muffled voice somewhere ahead. "You belong here now." Emily recognized the voice. It was the whisper she heard on the phone. Panic tore through her. She turned to run, but the door opened and she fell out into the mud. She scrambled through the stalks. Phone dropped. Sirens finally sounded, but too late. The shadow was in front of her now. Tall, thin, face blank. No eyes, just a smooth surface where a face should be. Emily screamed, and then everything went black. When she awoke, she was in the back of an ambulance, lights flashing. The cornfield loomed behind the paramedics. The officer handed her a paper, missing persons report for Mark Harper, age 30. Emily's voice cracked. "Find him!" The officer nodded. "We will, but we found this in the silo." He handed her a photograph. Mark, standing with the blank-faced figure, handing over the cassette tape. Emily stared. It was from the night he vanished. She didn't remember the photo being taken. The officer added quietly, "We heard the tape in the car en route. We'll play it in evidence." Emily looked at the photo again. The figure's face looked like hers in the dim light. She couldn't tell. The town of Willow Creek woke to rain. The cornfield looked grey and lifeless. Inside Emily's house, the radio still stood on the kitchen table, blinking 12:00. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. She opened the curtains and watched the silo across the field. Mark's car still sat in the driveway, engine off, doors locked. Emily knew one thing: the case was only beginning. And somewhere in the darkness, the whisper waited. "Don't let the echo answer." She repeated it to herself. It echoed in her mind. The town felt hollow, the people polite, but the stalks whispered. Emily wrapped herself in a blanket. She whispered into the dark, "Mark?" No answer. She rose and walked to the porch. The wind had stopped. The cornfield was motionless, silent, too silent. She turned back inside. The tape lay on the counter. She picked it up. She hugged it to her chest. She whispered back, "We're coming." And she meant it. For Mark, for Willow Creek, for the echo that waits. The investigation into Mark's disappearance had drawn attention from neighboring towns and local news channels. But in rural Nebraska, those stories fade fast. Emily sat in the living room of her home in Willow Creek, watching the rain drizzle outside, the cornfield beyond blurred. The tape, Echo 02, still sat unopened. She had wrapped it in plastic and mailed a copy to a forensic audio lab in Omaha. The police had recovered the original Echo 01, but were reluctant to play it publicly. "Chain of custody," they said. Late that afternoon, the detective assigned to the case, Detective Ramirez, knocked at her door. He held an evidence bag. Inside, the cassette tape and a photograph of her house from Night of Call. "We found something else," he said quietly. Emily's chest tightened. He placed on the table a weather-worn notebook. Inside were crude drawings, a figure, the cornfield, the silo, and a set of coordinates, 41-200, 96-123. Emily recognized the approximate location, the county line between Willow Creek and the next township. "These were found inside the silo walls," had Ramirez said, "behind a loose panel, hidden." Emily's stomach turned. "Who drew them?" she asked. "No idea," he said. "The lab is running audio from the tape, but we wanted you to have the notebook." That night at home, Emily forced herself to play the original tape for once. She set up a sound-isolated room, plugged in the cassette player. Static again. Then a voice, low, in the room. "You've arrived." Then a sound she recognized, her own footsteps in the silence. Then a whisper, "We count your names." The tape scratched, a growl, then a click, then a second voice, "Marks." "Emily, help." The tape ended. Emily fell backward. Tears fell. She couldn't believe what she heard. She called Detective Ramirez. "I heard Mark's voice." He asked her to come to the station. At the station, they played the tape for the forensic team. The waveform showed anomalies, segments where the voice was doubled, then silenced. The audio lab technician pointed out a faint background sound. Tall grass rustling, wind, then a distant thud. "The environment matches an open field, maybe the cornfield," the technician said. Emily left the station, shaken. The rain had stopped. The field outside was slick and dark. At home, she placed her phone beside the tape and began researching the coordinates from the notebook. The next day, she drove out alone to the point. The gravel road turned into dirt. The cornstalks parted like curtains. At the marker coordinate, she found a rust-colored manhole cover half buried under leaves. It was not on any county map she checked. She removed it with difficulty and peered inside. Darkness. She dropped a small rock. It echoed. She listened. Nothing back. Strange. A breeze stirred the stalks and she heard a whisper behind her. "Echo!" She spun. Nothing. Then the flashlight illuminated something carved into the metal rim. "Watch us!" Panic surged. She slammed the cover shut and ran to the car. Her phone buzzed. A new text message from an unknown number. "You found the lid." She slammed the door shut and drove away. She didn't stop until she reached the lights of Willow Creek. That night she dreamt of Mark. He stood in the field at dawn, handing her the tape. The figure was behind him, silent. She woke, drenched in sweat. The radio in her room turned on by itself. Static hissing. The whisper, "Echo knows your name." Again. Emily turned off the radio with shaking hands. She decided to sleep on the couch. At 3:30, the phone rang. No number. She answered, the voice, "Good night." Then the line cut. She sat upright, heart pounding. She looked out the window. The cornfield was bright in moonlight. The stalks swayed, the windlass. She got dressed and walked outside. The moon high, the field bright white, the manhole cover gone. In the soil where it lay was a print, boot tread, and then two small shallow handprints side by side. She crouched, traced one with a gloved hand. The skin had been washed away by rain, but the imprint remained. She backed away. The ground felt wrong. She stumbled back to the house. She locked the door. She called Detective Ramirez again. "Cover has been removed. I found prints. We're sending a unit," he said. "Don't go outside again tonight." She nodded, but minutes later, the lights flickered off. She sat in darkness, the hum of the refrigerator loud. The radio kicked on, a single high-pitched tone that climbed until it snapped, then silence. A crash came from outside. The porch light smashed. She didn't move. She held her breath. Then the front door opened slowly. The wind blew cold inside. The cornstalks outside rattled. Footsteps in the hallway. A thud on the stairs. Emily scrambled behind the couch. She gripped the phone. The man's voice. "We are with you." It came through the door speaker. She screamed. The light returned. Everything still. The police siren in the distance. Emily ran downstairs and out the door, into the front yard. The cornfield swallowed the yard line. A tall figure stood at the edge of the field, backlit by moonlight, watching. She screamed for the officer, "Help!" The figure turned. She saw its face, blank, pale, like a mirror with no reflection. She shut her eyes. When she reopened them, the figure was gone. Detective Ramirez pulled up in his cruiser with lights off. He jumped out. "Get in," he said. She entered the car. He sped off, tires skidding on wet road. She looked back, the figure now several yards within the cornfield, motionless. He turned on the radio. The tape labeled Echo 03 played on the station's frequency, static, then breathing, then run. Emily realized the tape was broadcasting live. The detective swore softly. "How did this get on the airwaves?" he asked. Emily held the phone. A new message. "Echo 05, we're playing." She closed her eyes, crying. They were trapped. The car stopped at the station. She ran inside. Officers greeted her, shots being played. On the monitors, the manhole cover video feed from some hidden camera. The figure climbing out of the hole, standing, looking at the camera. Emily watched, horror filling her. The face was hers, or nearly hers. The detective placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll find Mark. Tonight." Outside the station, rain began again. The field glowed under streetlights. Emily looked at the monitors, then the field. She whispered, "Don't let the echo answer." And for the first time, she realized the echo was asking the question. The question was, will you answer? She didn't know. But she knew she had to try. Willow Creek's quiet had changed. The storks no longer whispered just in wind, they listened. And tonight, the town awaited its answer. Emily steeled herself. She stood. "Let's go," she said. Detective Ramirez nodded. Together, they walked into the night. The cornfield beside them, endless. The tape in her pocket, the whisper in her mind. And the figure watching, waiting. Something moved in the field. Emily held the flashlight high. The stalks parted as if breathing. The wind picked up. The field roared in silence. Emily's heart roared louder. The shadow moved again. The echo answered, and she stepped forward, into the darkness. It was now the early hours of Saturday. Willow Creek looked asleep. But for Emily Harper, the town was anything but. She sat in the squad car beside Detective Ramirez, watching the cornfield across from the police station. Rain had tapered off. The sky was heavy and hung low. The electric lights cast long shadows through the stalks. The cassette tape, Echo 03, still hummed in the station's evidence locker. The forensic team had extracted a hidden track, a countdown. Immediately the numbers ticked, 30, 29, 28, until it hit 0. Then a click. Then silence. Emily asked, "0 what?" The technician shrugged. "Not sure. It could be minutes, days, we don't know." The dispatch center received a live feed on the station S-scanner. The tape S-audio, static, interrupted by someone whispering, "It's here." Ramirez glanced at Emily. "We move tonight." They loaded gear, torches, EMF detectors, body cams. They planned to enter the cornfield, head for the manhole coordinates. A patrol car pulled out from the lot. 2 officers followed. Emily felt her stomach twist. The field's edge was damp. The stalks glistened. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing long shadows. Emily felt watched. Every crack of a twig, every rustle of leaves felt amplified. They approached the manhole cover. It was missing. In its place lay the loose notebook from the silo, open to the coordinates. Ramirez crouched and looked at the ground. More handprints, deeper this time, and footprints of 3 different sizes. EMF detectors blared intermittently. The air felt charged, heavy, and Emily swallowed hard. She followed the path into the darkness. The flashlight caught something ahead, a tall figure standing still. She froze. Ramirez raised his torch. The figure turned slowly, the face blank, a mirror-smooth surface reflecting Emily's terror. The figure raised a hand. The flashlight flickered and died. The EMF beeped. The figure vanished. A movement behind Emily. She whipped around. The path behind them closed. The stalks had shifted. She screamed. Ramirez pulled her back. "Move!" he shouted. They ran. The field around them rippled like an ocean of corn. The wind howled. Off in the distance, a siren. The officers closed in. The path split. Emily followed Ramirez into darkness. Now suddenly a phone in her pocket buzzed. The message, Echo 06, finish. She dropped to her knees. The words burned on the screen. Ramirez helped her up. They arrived at a shallow pit in the ground. The camera caught it. Sticky, dark fluid around the rim, footprints, and the manhole cover lying nearby. Emily approached. The ground shifted beneath her. She peered in. Darkness, and then a faint glimmer of eyes looking up. She jumped back, a voice from below. "We've been waiting." The EMF shot off the scale. The figure emerged slowly, tall, pale, blank face. The same one from the silo, the field, the house. Emily backed away. Ramirez raised his weapon. The figure didn't run. It approached. The voice again, "Echo knows your number." Ramirez pulled Emily behind him. The figure paused. Then it pointed at Emily. "You gave it away." The voice echoed, vibrating the air. Ramirez fired a warning shot. The bullet hit a stalk. The field exploded in movement. Cornstalks bent inward, as if alive. Emily felt yanked forward. The light from above illuminated the pit. The figure climbed out and stood next to the manhole. Behind it, the ground beneath was hollow. A low rumble. The earth shook. The manhole cover slid into the pit quietly. Then the opening closed. Emily screamed. They turned to run. The stalks ripped at their clothes. Something whispered in the dark. "Finish." The siren neared. The field parted, revealing vehicles. The officers swarmed in. The figure was gone. The pit sealed. The manhole cover raised slightly once, then sealed again. Ramirez reached for Emily's hand. She shook. He said quietly, "You heard it, right?" She nodded, tears streaking down. "Mark said my name." Ramsey radioed ahead. "We found prints, audio logs, the pit. We'll seal this." Emily looked at the tall stalks, the dark, moonlit field. She felt the weight of unseen watchers. They escorted her back to the house. The tape Echo 03 was played again in the squad car speaker. Static, then whisper, then her voice saying, "He's here." She listened. The voice was brittle, weak. Then a whisper, "Join us." The tape ended. At home, Emily found her husband's jacket under the porch light. His keys were in the ignition of his car, but his phone and wallet missing. She called Ramirez. "We found his car. It's in the county lot. No prints inside." She collapsed into bed. Morning light broke. The cornfield looked calm again. The radio in the kitchen flickered on. The announcer calmly said, "Good morning, Willow Creek. Some unusual interference last night. Please stand by." Emily turned off the radio. She walked to the window and stared into the field. The stalks seemed to wave. She felt someone's gaze. She wrapped herself in a coat. She stepped outside. The cool air bit at her skin. She picked up the cassette tape from her bag, a new label, Echo 04, Final. She pressed play, static, then the whisper, "We are you." The tape ended. She dropped it. The radio in the car across the street crackled and played her voice. "Help!" Emily screamed, backed away. A car pulled to her driveway. Ramirez and officers jumped out. The tall field figure stood at the edge of the yard, motionless. Emily ran inside. They cornered the figure with flashlights. It vanished again. Ramirez opened his phone. We traced the broadcast. It came from under the field. Emily stared at the ground. The grass parted. The manhole cover lay half exposed. She reached down. The cover lifted without force. Inside, darkness. A whisper from below. "You belong." Emily backed away. The cover slammed itself closed. The officers sealed the site with tape and caution signs. They escorted her away. Later, at the station, Emily watched the footage. The figure emerged. Her face, her voice, her footsteps. The height was hers. The outline, identical. The detective whispered, "It's a copy, a shadow, an echo of you." Emily's world shifted inside. She asked, "What is it?" He said, "We think it's something older, something the town buried." She thought of the old silo, the cornfield, the coordinates, the manhole, the notebook drawings, the countdown, the missing people, Mark. The radio again. The announcer apologized for strange signals overnight. Emily switched it off. She vowed, "We will find you, Mark." The town of Willow Creek would no longer be silent. The stalks watched. The echo answered. And Emily would not wait any longer. With Ramirez behind her, she returned to the field. She stepped into the corn. The stalks parted. The ground pulsed. She felt a presence beside her, a whisper. "Find the echo." She nodded, voice steady. "I will." The field closed around them. The manhole cover glinted. Emily pressed down. It lifted. She looked in. Darkness, and then 2 pale eyes. She descended slowly, Ramirez beside her. The steps inside were metal and cold. At the bottom was a vast cavern, lit by flickering bulbs, walls inscribed with names. Mark's name, hers, dozens more. A mirror hung at one end, her reflection but wrong, longer limbs, blank face. The figure appeared behind the reflection. It stepped forward, and then the reflection merged with it. Emily gasped. The echo copy was merging. Ramirez radioed. "Backup required. We found a subterranean complex." The reflection opened its mouth. It said, "We are you. We are them." Emily closed her eyes. She reached out and touched the mirror surface. It rippled like water. She pulled back. The echo advanced. The stalks, faintly outside, hummed in unison. Then everything went dark.